Good evening and a warm welcome back again for another session with our special guests, meeting an expert, of course aligned with the APIT purpose and giving the opportunity for networking to all our students from different programs. So while welcoming all of you on board, let me hand it over to our chairman, Mr. Bandula Godage, to share his wishes and expressions. Chairman, over to you.
Thank you, Kaushali. First of all, Excellency Buddhi Athauda, it's a privilege to welcome you here, sir. This is our CEO's forum. We are doing it a very frequent manner, probably on every Wednesday, initiated by Dr. Rohan Tatuporala. Whole objective with this series is basically, Excellency, to give the direct interaction with our student population, and also people like you, like opinion leader like you, your experience, your ability, your thoughts will definitely have a huge impact on our student population for them to increase their knowledge base. So very warmly welcome you here, sir. It's a privilege to welcome you. And not only that, my good friend Akram Ghazali also joining as a special guest. So I know his capability because he's very frequently meeting with us for many occasions. So you are there to share your experience also. Thank you very much, both of you, Excellency Buddhi Athauda and Ikram Ghazali, for being with us in spite of your busy schedule. It is basically your CSR angle because you are giving something to the world. I'm sure you are enjoying with this session because you are giving something for your own Sri Lankan or external students for their betterment. On behalf of APIT, our CEO Roshan Egodagi and board of directors and all the student population and also our staff, I just want to say a big thank you for both of you for this, for having confirmed your participation for this and being with us for this wonderful session. I request all my students get the maximum out of these two gentlemen and share their experience, or they can ask any question from through Kaushali to the speakers. So please get the maximum usage of these two gentlemen's time. So I wish you all the very best for successful session, Excellency Buddhi Athauda and Ikram Ghazali. Thank you very much for your presence once again. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Rohanta and Kaushali.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and it's actually an honor to host such distinguished personalities. So our guest speaker, Ambassador Buddhi K. Athauda, former ambassador to Germany, Netherlands, France, Andorra, Kingdom of Monaco, Portugal, and Spain. Buddhi Athauda is an illustrious senior diplomat and international investment strategist with a broad range of experience and expertise, exerting 26 years in providing mission-based direction and strategic governance, mobilizing teams to reach targets. He started his career as a team member of the high-tech startup Iridium LLC, the company that developed the first ever satellite mobile communication system covering the entire Earth. He was appointed the Consul General for Sri Lanka to Germany in 2007, where he co-founded the Diplomatic Council, a global think tank with the consultative status with United Nations. During his diplomatic career spanning 30 years, he served as the Ambassador for Extraordinary and Plenary of Sri Lanka to the Kingdom of Netherlands, as the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Sri Lanka to France, on concurrent accreditation to Andorra, Kingdom of Monaco, Portugal, Spain, respectively. He has served many international organizations, including the UNWTO, as a permanent representative and member of the executive board for UNESCO. Buddhi Athauda holds a Master's of Business Administration in International Business and Finance from the USA. He received his primary education from Ananda College, Colombo 10. Ladies and gentlemen, sir, over to you.
Thank you so much. And so big appreciation to APIT, the founder of the APIT, Bandula Egodage, Dr. Rohanta and Akram. Nice to meet all of you through this video conference chat. When you asked me to share some of my thoughts with your students, I had shut down my ambassador brain, and I'm here in Sri Lanka taking a nice break. And then I had to revisit my life as ambassador and thought what I should tell all of you. I thought rather than giving some statistics which is available on the internet, I thought I should remind you of some concepts that every student should think through and think of when you get to real life and real jobs. Especially helping Sri Lanka at the same time getting your career going into a very high level. I think first of all, when you think of ambassador trying to do things for the country, it's quite important that we think of country branding, and we think of attracting your country to the investment from whatever the country you are in to Sri Lanka. When you look at all these things, these are all integrated. You cannot just jump up and down as ambassador trying to bring investors if things are not really pile up properly, stack up properly in Sri Lanka. So I have gone through all this for the last 13 years. I have brought companies. I have been a catalyst for some. Just I did a support role. Some I really personally handhold the entire process. So therefore, I think I'm quite qualified to tell you some of the things that we could do and we haven't done. I'll give you one example. Let's think of gem industry in Sri Lanka, okay? Blue sapphire. So many princesses and queens and kings have bought Sri Lanka blue sapphires, but yet we don't have a Sri Lanka branding on that one. But let's think of great big brands like Louis Vuitton or some other big brands. Let's say how we co-brand with some of these big guys and capture the market. For example, if you put the Louis Vuitton name on a handbag, it will go up at least by $5,000 to $10,000 per handbag. So just like that, we could do these things. For example, the big famous museum in France. And Abu Dhabi went and got them to brand another museum in Abu Dhabi, all because they wanted to increase their tourism by extra 10 million people. So unless you think globally, my dear students, if you are just trying to be an MBA student, I think you cannot reach your optimal capacity or capabilities. And your thinking should integrate into your companies. I'll tell you another no-brainer thing. This world had 2-3 times in the past history where we were all in the even field. One is just before the Industrial Revolution. Sri Lanka, India, Europe, I think we were in the same level. But in the last 400 years with the Industrial Revolution, Europeans had the advantage. And then, of course, we became colonies. We became almost slaves for some of these developed countries. And then, for some luck, we start getting independence of these colonies. But so we lost out to it. Then came the computer technology. Of course, few Sri Lankan companies became great success stories like Virtusa, but not many. And then now, after COVID, I think we have another chance to approach this world for many other opportunities. Think of, a few years ago with the Paris Agreement, entire world leaders agreed to reduce the CO2 emission. So who are the two biggest big polluters, emitters, CO2 emitters. That one is the power generation and power and energy industry sector. The other one is the transport. So guess what President Macron did just in the last few months while he was struggling with the COVID? Recently, after signing the Paris Agreement, they banned all the gasoline vehicles to the Paris city by 2030. Okay. Then in return, he went and made a deal with electric car battery manufacturers in China to come and put the factory in France. So my point is, when you're early in the industry, when you're at the early stage, if you can get into industry, we can make things happen. I don't understand why Sri Lanka cannot be, being an island, why can't we be island of electric vehicles only? If our leaders can declare that one, make a deal with these automobile manufacturers, we could be the leading country, not France, because France and Europe are interconnected. So you need the cars with the batteries that can go very far. But in Sri Lanka, we only have maximum maybe 400 kilometers, okay? So we could have been an early guy to say, yes, Sri Lanka is going to be a country without gasoline vehicles in 10 years or 15 years or something. So we can attract the industry to come here and start manufacturing or start designing cars in Sri Lanka. In return, our universities can start training engineers for the electric vehicles. Our vocational training centers start training mechanics and technicians for the electric vehicles. Guess what? By the time Middle East or any other country become electric vehicle countries, EV electric vehicle countries, our technicians will go there. This is how we take advantage. So it's painful to see, painful to see that we are not strategically doing these things. Also, if I talk about fashion industry, and we have become, even though half of our income coming from Europe is from garment industry, we are still stitching garments. Okay, of course, Mars is making some lingerie, bras, and few items under their own brand finally, but we have not vertically integrated any of these things. So I think if our country and if our ambassadors want to do a good job, we should give things with the right strategy and a right plan, and then you can push the ambassadors, they can deliver it. Some ambassadors can take their own and make things happen, but not ambassadors are not quite trained for trade and investments. They are graceful people, fantastic orators, and great speakers, charming people, very educated, but investments and trade is another animal. And unless we give good tools to these ambassadors, and we cannot blame ambassadors. But saying that one, so when I went to France as ambassador, my background is in the high-tech startup. So you look at a concept and then you put a business plan, you raise some money, you hire some technical people and experts, and then you create your product or the service, and you do a branding, and then you do sales and marketing and operations. So going through this, so it's the same thing when a new ambassador goes to an embassy. So you go with some kind of vision, build a team, and make things happen, whatever the period you're given. So that's what we try to do. I try to do the same. And during my period in France, I thought I should do at least $5 billion worth of investment to Sri Lanka. Otherwise, I don't think it's worth my time, or I don't think ambassadors should do anything less than $1 billion. Because any third world country presidents, when they make an international trip nowadays, if they don't bring home at least a $1 billion investment, I think it's a failed nation. So looking at all these things, without even doing proper deep studies, it's very common sense how to come up with a few $1 billion for Sri Lanka. At that time, when I was there, of course, we had this, we were going to put some train systems, and we had many industries France could bring to us. And So at that time, of course, France, one of the very famous companies, Michelin Tires, acquired some of the Sri Lankan rubber manufacturing companies, and it was a 1.5 billion euro, 1.49 billion investment to buy a company. They moved in. So, and if we had brought, we got the French government with the greatest difficulty design Colombo city transport hub, where our trains and buses can synchronize and have a nice hub in Colombo. And President Macron was very nice to us, and we managed with the embassy in French embassy here in Sri Lanka. They all worked together, and they allocated some money to design this. And then we were going to do some more fundraising to do some of the Colombo city transport hub. That would have been another $1 to $2 billion. So like that, you could add few $1 billion projects to Sri Lanka easily. And then of course, tourism, France, we were doing about 100,000, 120,000 tourists. We could easily increase that with certain different strategies. I remember when I was an ambassador in the Netherlands, there was a TV, most watched TV show in Netherlands at that time. And we remember with the greatest difficulty, we filmed entire 1 year's worth of episodes in Sri Lanka, in all the beaches, the hotels, the mountains. I think the numbers went up from 17,000 tourists to 55,000 tourism with this kind of that's just one campaign we did, but we did few more things during that time, and all these things add up. So my point is, if you look at strategically, if you do things in the level of ambassador, in the level of minister, level of the government, level of the president, when you put all that together, you really can make wonders. It's a matter of having a strategy and doing things. Another underserved section in Sri Lanka for the global market is our cuisines. Sri Lanka cuisines, if you look at French cuisines and all the fancy 5-star hotels, you know, just the way you serve a meal, the 3-course meal or a 5-course meal, there's an art to it, there's elegance to it. So what we did was we hired this Michelin-rated, very high rank chefs, and we showed them all our meals, and we'd asked them to present it in Western style, how to present this. And so these are the other techniques other countries are doing just to do their national branding. For example, Thailand is extremely pushing their cuisines into a very fancy 5-star, 7-star level, very refined presentation with their cuisines. End of the day, it's the same spices, it's the same material, like, you know, same ingredients, but, you know, the presentation, the texture, the color, all these things matter. But I think Sri Lanka also has amazing, great food. But I think part of our global branding, the tourism to our fantastic location, the beach, the tea plantation, the seafood, all this can go towards making our brand. And we are just scratching the surface right now. Also, if you look at another one I thought of Sri Lanka can easily achieve would be Sri Lanka as a banking and investment hub, because we have so many accountants, CIMA qualified accountants, and then we are naturally good in mathematics and accounting. So I was looking at the global investment and the financial hubs like London, New York, but then there are many hubs coming up. For example, Mauritius, Dubai, Singapore, all these things came in the last 10, 20 years, but we have not made progress. But we could make progress if we can push these things. Of course, we need to have a real legal system, consistent foreign policies, consistent investment attraction packages by BOI. I know during about 5 years ago. Because of the World Bank instructions, we canceled all the incentive that was given to BOI. I think it was a big mistake. I don't think any big players have come to Sri Lanka, even though we had a lot of statements in the newspapers. Maybe we have come few things. So whoever came, it's not came for the financial incentives, because of other strategic reasons. So I think there are a lot to do, and ambassadors' role is important, and ambassadors should think like startups, and they should achieve many things. And I think many ambassadors are doing a great job, and I think our students they can do a bigger role, because all the things I told you for one reason. That is, when we do, no insult to China, by the way, when we do business with China, our politicians can handshake with China, and they do all the feasibilities, they do all the research go behind it. But at the same time, we need to have a layer of management, a lot more than KPMG and Ernst & Young. Young MBAs could have a lot of more shops, because without this management layer, and without learning how to present the idea in a business plan to the Western world, we cannot bring any investment to Sri Lanka. So therefore, I think the MBA students and entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka has a big role to play. Even for politicians, we should develop them concept papers, business plans, and feasibilities. Without that, I don't think Western investors will come to Sri Lanka. In fact, it was a very common complaint our ministers had, even during my last 13 years when I was ambassador. Oh, Buddhi, Western companies don't come to Sri Lanka, because we don't even present the idea in the model that they are used to. So I think we have great opportunities. I think your young MBAs should learn how to make a presentation in Western style, not just, we cannot win everything by a nice smile only. Yeah, even though Sri Lanka has a really good reputation for courteous people, polite people, but we got to get to stand in the right platforms and talk the right language, present the numbers, present possibilities. And that we need to mobilize our entrepreneurs, our small to medium businesses. Then I think we can succeed. Embassy role become very small when these things can happen. Yes, embassies can bring a first meeting for you, but the rest is up to you. But that's why embassies also fail. So that is kind of my pledge for the young MBAs. And if you have any questions, I will share some thoughts I have.
Thank you, sir. Can I invite some expert comments from Mr. Ikram Ghazali, who happens to be the president of the Sri Lanka France Business Council, a very eminent person working in Haley's group, one of the top personalities that I have met, holds an MBA from the University of Wales, a postgraduate diploma from the Chartered Institute of Marketing UK, and he's a member of the Group Management Committee of Haley's Advantage, and which is one of the most diversified logistics groups in Sri Lanka. Ikram, you like to share a few expert comments on what Mr. Buddhi Athauda shared on his pickups of serving the country in different parts of the world for almost 13 years plus. So over to you.
Thank you, Rohantha. I hope I am audible.
Yes, very clear.
Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity, and Rohantha and Bandula, my good friend, and also I was really happy to be part of this discussion. especially Ambassador Buddhi Athauda. I have met him some years ago, and I took a lot of inspiration. In fact, as usually the way I do, I made some wonderful notes of his insights. I thought I'll start off with elaborating some of his points. He made 3 critical points. He spoke about branding, critical thinking, and thinking global. I think he hit the nail on the head. Brilliant piece of advice. Especially young MBAs should be really thinking of these 3 elements if you really need to succeed. He brought up this example of electric vehicles. I am personally passionate about your carbon footprint that you leave in Sri Lanka and globally. Sri Lanka is a tropical country, and why can't you have all electric vehicles in the country? In fact, I remember doing an article some time ago. In fact, I posted it on Facebook and on my LinkedIn. I wrote it to the Power and Energy Minister. I said, why not you convert every single roof in Sri Lanka with solar panels, and you generate free electricity. Simple argument there is when you have today, you have Sri Lanka is a poor country. I mean, we need to take note of that. And every roof you rent it out, the electricity board rent out every single roof and give an income to the household without paying a foreign country for your crude oil or for your coal to produce power. Unfortunately, I did not get a response from the Power and Energy Minister about 2 years ago. I still remember having this article posted on my LinkedIn page. So it all it needs is for me it's common sense. We should not be completely bookworms. We need to be, we have 5 senses, right? Even Lord Buddha spoke about your 5 senses. Use it wisely, and you can achieve great results. So if you look around, see around, you see, sunlight falling 365 days a year, and convert your roof, get your electricity free, and use it for so many other purposes. So thank you for that piece of advice, Ambassador. It was very useful. Then few things. I think for any country to succeed, you need some critical things. I just put down 3 things once again, what the ambassador spoke about. Now, at the Sri Lanka France Business Council, what we try to really do is 3 things. That is promote trade, investment, and tourism. Now, if you really do this well, as a country, you generally would have a positive balance of trade. And when you have a positive balance of trade, that really helps a country to have a reasonably better wallet. So today, what's happening is it's the opposite. We have a negative balance of trade, and hence we got to go in for loans. We got to really struggle, so to say, scratch the barrel. So I thought, since Rohantha wanted me to share some numbers, I'm sure Ambassador must be already having this. I just thought I'll share some numbers, especially on France, the trade between France and Sri Lanka. Let me just take that file out so that, yeah, so I will just share 5 years of information on how our balance of trade has performed. From 2015 to 2017, we have had a positive balance of trade. And come 2018 and 19, we have had a negative balance of trade, primarily because there had been more imports from France into Sri Lanka with regards to various projects. So now, as a country, branding, which was a point spoken by the ambassador, why cannot we add more value to our products? Even the tea that you export, today, most of the tea that we export it is in bulk form. Why can't Sri Lanka have a brand and then get more revenue for your brand? Similarly, there are so many other things. It can be the blue sapphire, it can be our Ceylon spices, it can be various other products we have in the country to really brand it and get maximum foreign revenue for that. I will also just talk about tourism. Again, France is very significant. I'm sure all of you know that France is the most visited country in the world. When I read it recently, it was about 83 million tourists coming into France. Now, compare that with Sri Lanka. I believe Sri Lanka is about 1.5 million tourists. Now, is there lessons that we can learn from France to promote this beautiful country? I mean, it's a mini heaven. You have from beaches to the mountains to the waterfalls to everything, wildlife, all of that. I recently had the opportunity to hold a webinar with Kimali, again under the Sri Lanka France Business Council on developing tourism. Unfortunately, we are in a pandemic state, but I'm sure we should come out of it very soon. Hopefully, if the vaccination program rolls out quite well. So again, a massive foreign exchange earner for the country, and one that we really need to strive for. And when I read further, I understood there are 24 million tourists visiting the Asian region, and only about 100,000 visit Sri Lanka. So the rest of the 23.9 million tourists are missing out an amazing experience. How do we leverage on that? Ambassador spoke about the knowledge we have on numbers, finance, and accounting. I remember working with my company, which is a French company, which is the third largest shipping line in the world. Knowing this number that we have the world's second largest CIMA qualified population next to UK, we made a very, very solid proposal to our principal in France based in Marseille. And a year later, in 2013, we set up a BPO center in Sri Lanka. And we started off with just 15 employees, and we went up to 300 employees. It was purely a local effort. A small team got together and understood that there is potential in this country. What about our geographical location? I mean, I think it's not pearl of the Indian Ocean. I think it's a pearl of the world. We are right in the middle of the east-west trade route, and the port of Colombo sits in a very, very strategic place. If you really look at, no need to look further. If you look at the Indian subcontinent, you take India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and rest of the countries around, you are sitting under 1/4 of the global population. So today we are talking about e-commerce, we talk about connectivity, and Sri Lanka sits right in the middle of the epicenter. So these are some thoughts for the MBA students. I would invite all of you to really pursue your MBA studies. Of course, after a professional qualification, you must pursue an MBA after a professional qualification. I have this discussion with most of the people I interview. They have an MBA, but they don't have a professional qualification. So you can't call yourself somebody if you don't have a professional qualification. But MBAs really, really shape you to think differently because you've gone through practical scenarios, presentations, various challenges, research, etc., etc. So on that note, let me thank the ambassador for his wonderful insights, and also Bandula and Rohanta for giving me the opportunity to share some of my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Ikram. It was very, very interesting to have such an array of discussion points, which actually signifies the professionalism by which you kind of drive this whole business agenda that we are faced with right now in Sri Lanka.
Rohanta, let me add one more point. I remember coming to Colombo as a 19-year-old. I studied at Kingswood College. We didn't have Google Maps then, so I had to bus all the way to Colombo for a CIM class, and Rohanta was my CIM lecturer. So Rohanta, you set the foundation, and thank you very much.
I was really proud when I was reading about you, and when I realized that you were the president of this very important business group. I was really proud to read about you, and thank you so much, Ikram, for remembering those good days that we used to have. um, so I want to go to Mr. Buddhi Athauda and you know uh, just ask you. COVID has challenged every single country, and sometimes we tend to kind of lose some business, but we also see in the last 1 year, which I think Ikram will very rightly say, how we have found new opportunities, some opportunities that we never saw. I mean, especially I think in the Haley's group, Ikram, you must be knowing the kinds of export opportunities that have suddenly emerged because of the whole area of hygiene. So, Mr. Athauda, I'd just like to know, Ambassador, do we have some experiences in France on how Sri Lanka exporters have defined these kinds of challenges, that a typical exporter would sometimes have when they do business with France? So, you like to give your thoughts before I hand over and get some views from Ikram also?
Right, yeah. But this is not nice to say, but if you're purely looking from the business point of view, this is a great opportunity, okay? Two reasons. One, I can tell you many things, but let me point out a few things. One, manufacturers in France and actually all over Europe, Germany, Austria, they are very precision, very high-end, fantastic products, but they have they have threats from Chinese manufacturing now. So they are already under pain. And then comes COVID, and they're really destroyed now. But all these distressed companies, if I were Haley's, I would open an office in Paris and talk to all the, I would say, accounting companies who know their book, who knows how painful these companies are. Make a deal with these accounting companies and get a list of distressed companies, approach them, shift their manufacturing to Sri Lanka, and let them do the sales and marketing and designing over there. And you can bring enough factories to Sri Lanka easily, whether it's in pharma or especially automobile industry. It's a dying industry for Europe, but China is grabbing every opportunity, but we are sitting pretty doing nothing. Actually, we could think of manufacturing. I don't know who has analyzed. A whole world is saying only China is the manufacturer, but that's a failed model. China is a blessing for Sri Lanka because now the world is looking at China differently. When French and the Europeans think of Sri Lanka is a part of the Road and Belt strategy, country part of that strategy, that is a positive thing for Europeans to come and put things over there because, they think the Chinese will never fail. So this is kind of an unwritten discussion among the French business people or manufacturers. So with that, of course, you can bring some banking and the investment sector to Sri Lanka also. I think that is just one easy one I can think of easily. But can I also point out one more thing that Ikram said about value addition and branding, value additions, okay? This is a real story that happened to me and it's still painful to me, but that is how what packaging can do to you. Okay, I know. I used to just like diplomatic council. I also created many more organizations. I also created a golf club for multimillionaires to go and play golf. So this was this was during my German days, and our first visit of these German millionaires was to Sri Lanka. We play golf for one day. Another day we wear the national costume. Third day we meet the VIPs, the business community, and that day, the next day night we have a gala dinner and award ceremony for this multimillionaire. So there was this guy who put this deal, package together for us. Usually it's about 50 to 100 golf players who travel on this visit. So I kept telling this guy, listen, why for our multimillionaire trip to Sri Lanka, why don't you get a helicopter? Why don't you get high-end vehicles? Book 5-star hotels? And he was painfully saying, oh, too expensive. And he was trying to have a low budget thing. Then when I went to the Netherlands, I told one lady, why don't you offer tour packages with helicopter tours and boats and all these, high-end, quite easy things? Because think about a tourist coming from Colombo to Kandy, 5 hours on this road. I think it's a torture. So guess what? This lady's cost for that entire package was about $3,000 some. She offered the package for $7,000, whereas my other businessman kept only $50 margin for him because he felt guilty to offer high-end packages and charge more. This lady almost made a $2,000-3,000 premium, all by offering packaging a high-end brand. So my point is, if you package it right, you still can make a lot of money. And sometimes our entrepreneurs are scared to think of charging this kind of money. I hope I didn't take too much time, Rohan.
No, that's fine. Sir, but how does the embassy support a potential export of products into France?
Oh, there are many things embassy can do and they should do. First of all, entire embassy staff, we are public servants. We are available to do things for the people. We are public servants. We get paid from the public. We are not the boss of the public. So therefore, we should make sure every possible thing is available for Sri Lankan people. Our vehicles, our embassy, our buildings, our space. So first of all, if a Sri Lankan company wants to do a business, I'm happy to facilitate that meeting in the office. 2 things going to happen. Immediately, the Sri Lankan businessman going to get some credibility, and when somebody says it's going to happen in the embassy, the French or their local companies going to take them a little bit more seriously. Then they could guide us. The Sri Lankan embassy could guide them on various aspects of doing business. Sometimes when a new businessman going to another country for the first time, the cultural practices, behavior patterns, how to open a bank account, to how to get a visa for their colleagues. There are so many things embassy can do, and also information, data about that particular industry sector, and also developing a list of potential clients possible to do.
So just tell us a little bit, what made you select a political career, a career in the diplomatic service? I mean, what really figured out? Because I went to your Facebook and I was going through all the photographs of you with with Mr. Macron, and how you're getting down, meeting the Queen of, I think, Netherlands. So what made you join this the diplomatic course, sir?
Actually, it's accidentally it happened. I went to US in 1982 or 83, somewhere there, and I did my undergraduate. I started in engineering, then I realized I like to be in the world of finance. So being a so I was naturally good in math and physics. So when I was in school in America, I made good grades for those two classes. Normally 100 out of 100 for a physics class was easy. Then it was boring. So I tried to finance. So I ended up graduating in finance. Then after my bachelor's degree, I worked for a manager training program for a bank. And then I also did, I managed some hotels like Sheraton and so on. Then I did my MBA, International Business and Finance again. Then I joined this startup. It was a nice break for me. It was the idea from Motorola at that time, one of the biggest technology giants at that time. Now there's no company called Motorola, in fact. Every police, all over the world used the Motorola walkie-talkies those days, remember? So I joined this startup. The idea was to have a mobile telephone where it works everywhere on the planet Earth. That means including the oceans, the mountains, the North Pole, South Pole. Only way to do that one is to have some satellites covering the planet Earth. So at that time, we put a business plan together, and we raised $7.5 billion those days. Then we hired a lot more engineers, and then we hired all the rocket launchers, Delta rocket in US, the Russian rocket launcher, and the Chinese rocket launcher. And we end up sending 3, 4, 5 satellites each one, put 77 satellites in the orbit, and we cover the entire planet Earth with signals. And then we came up with the first ever mobile satellite phones with 100% coverage of our entire planet Earth. During those days, I lived in Washington, and so I got to know the Washington crowd. Plus, my boss was the nephew of the former Vice President Walter Mondale in the US. So I was automatically in the circle of investment bankers and the top some of the politicians in US. So I had the fortunate to work with the advisory team of the Senator Kennedy those days, and for that matter, the both party, Democratic Party and Republican Party, has think tanks in the USA, in Washington. So I had the opportunity to be with these think tanks. So I was always brainstorming these think tanks or advisors of some of the senators what to do for Sri Lanka. So at that time, Sri Lanka President Mahinda Rajapaksa had just won, where I also had just come here and done work for his election campaign, which I have done since 1970. I think 1970, 77, I have been in almost all the election campaigns in Sri Lanka. So I always thought what to do for Sri Lanka. So with these bright people, most of them are Harvard or some famous school graduates, we wrote a concept paper those days called How to Keep Sri Lanka Presidency as a Global Brand Name. So presidency is a real brand name. And then that was a trigger point. I think President Rajapaksa had come to UN. I think his first visit after becoming the president. So I went to New York and I just happened to said, "Sir, I'm concept paper." So he looked at it and briefly, and I told him the concept. I think that day he told me, I think you should go as ambassador. So anyway, eventually, so that's how it happened. And of course, I'm sure, having worked for many election campaigns and being in the political circle in Sri Lanka, I'm sure all that happened. But end of the day, I remember being in the USA and all those fancy whiskey drinking people in the evening, having an answer for all the problems in Sri Lanka, having been with them, it's nice to complain drinking whiskey about how stupid Sri Lanka politicians are. I thought I should put myself into their other side and try to do something about it. So that was the motivation to give up some fancy jobs in the US and doing something for Sri Lanka.
So since you, have kind of worked in France, how is France coping with the pandemic?
I think France is going to have a V-shaped recovery. They really went through a painful period, but last few weeks French culture is even the cafes and street cafes are the city people, they always come down to have a cup of coffee, some of their meals, and it was really a difficult moment for them. But it was also sad that to see at that time people are stuck in their apartments, spending day after day after day. I didn't know why some of our Sri Lankan travel companies didn't run any ads. Come to Sri Lanka post-COVID. That would have been very effective because nobody was advertising. And I told some of my few friends over here. Anyway, so France is having very much a V-shaped recovery. Locally, the people have started traveling. The vaccines campaign is going well. I think they should be done in the next few months. And as you know, as Ikram said, France is the world's largest tourist destination. 81 to 83 million people are coming. The next one is Spain. So they're both competing. So they're both having 80 million some tourists per year. Unbelievable numbers. So it's important France get back on track. I think it's going to happen very soon. Already what I know is it's difficult to get a seat in a restaurant nowadays. Everybody would like to go out and have their coffee and wine and so on. And all the signs are there to have a V-shaped recovery.
So, what is your advice on how we should rebuild tourism post-COVID? What is your view?
I think we should wait until post-COVID to come up with the strategy. There are standard obvious things we should do that will be easy because, and also there are great opportunities. First of all, tourism, long-haul tourism, which means flying away to Asia from Europe, it's a kind of long-haul travel. And they should come here for at least 7 days to 2 weeks, this kind of a travel. And traditionally, tourism was done through travel agencies. Now, more and more people trying to go online. I think we are still performing very poorly online campaigns for tourists. So therefore, my advice is we need to have many, many products available. We need to bombard the internet with product, services, content development, maybe if possible in French. And then we should support our travel agencies about search engine optimization to how web crawling to how to identify our potential tourists. And also we should work with our traditional tourist travel agencies and travel agents and give them a lot of help and support. That will they will carry the burden to introduce Sri Lanka to the traditional way, but we should not forget online. For example, in Netherlands, 70% of the tourists decide their destination, do their research all online, not with a standard travel agency anymore. So these are big numbers. Online presence is important. Online advertising, packaging, branding is really, really important. And I think co-branding Sri Lanka products with Europeans also something that we have not done much. As I said, we have to productize a lot. We have not done that yet.
You feel that people will go back to the travel agent business because you need the COVID certificate? So do you feel that this form of digital solo traveler will take a little bit more time to recover, and maybe the usual travel agent kind of an option will come back, maybe even in the short term?
No. The traditional travel agencies and the travel what do you call them, magazines and travel media, these are very, very important components, pieces. We should nurture them. We should, in fact, pay the travel writers to come to Sri Lanka, take a tour, or pay them some kind of thing. So they write, because this world is very savvy. The best travel writers in the best newspapers and magazines in Europe and France, we should hire these people, write articles, favorable articles about us. This thing going to increase our, well, it can be a part of the strategy, and then work with the traditional travel agencies and productize. We need a lot of productizing here, which is weak point to me still.
So, Ikram, if I just turn to you, you said that in 2018 and 19, it was a negative trade balance. How do you think this can be reversed based on the thoughts that Mr. Buddhi Athauda also shared? What do you think?
Yeah. So, Rohanta, you need to have a clear export strategy as a country, and also there has to be resilience within the private sector as well. I can take an example of my parent company, Haley's Group, how quickly they kind of got back into production mode when the lockdown happened. When it came to PPEs, when it came to apparel, when it came to various other exports, as the Haley's Group would do, when the country went into lockdown, that was on the 18th of March, everybody was in shock. Nobody, we never have been in a situation like that. Everybody was in shock, but we managed to start our factories, the remote working, the DR systems got kicked in. We were back in business within a period of maybe 3 to 5 days. When rest of the world, like countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, was still in shock, we really got back and continued our business as usual, and that really helped to even break into some of the businesses we could never break in the past. There was a massive amount of volume, especially volumes of rubber gloves and even purification material orders, especially into US and Europe, which was in absolute demand, just got shifted into Sri Lanka because we put our hand up and said we have the production capability. So similarly, the private sector has a major role in doing research, coming up with various strategies to expand your brand and expand your production. And also there is a huge marketing element which you need to do. At the same time, of course, there are institutes like the Export Development Board, Coconut Development Board, Tea Research, all of them. We need to come together, put the country first, and really look at what we can leverage, because we have some top-end products in our country, whether it is traditional or non-traditional. We have the natural capability to export and get into any market. So I would think attitude and resilience is the first step.
So going back to Mr. Buddhi Athauda, sir, what advice would you give a young graduate doing an MBA, with your kind of such rich experience that you have?
I think he's muted.
Sir, can't hear you, sir.
Right. Okay, great. Can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear.
Right. As I said in the beginning, I think Sri Lanka is lacking one layer of management experts. I think we don't have enough That's why people like LOLC can raise a lot of money going to all over the world, but not many companies can do it, because that model can be applied to many, many, many companies. But how many companies are raising funding in international markets? Not many. Maybe SoftLogic, LOLC are the only two I can think of. Maybe a few more. So I think MBAs should be able to present a concept paper, business plan, finance model to a Western investor, and should be able to uh, speak in their language through these presentations. That is missing, feasibility studies, because I think Sri Lankans have a lot of great ideas and we have great opportunities. Actually, we could have more than enough opportunities for Sri Lanka, but I think we need to nurture that layer of students getting into that sector. That's one. And students also should think globally, global scale. Whatever we do, we should do in global scale. Otherwise, Sri Lanka is going to get behind and behind and behind. Even if you want to raise money, there's a scale of economies, how big you should pitch a project or something. Even for manufacturing, even if you want to sell a product, let's say you want to sell spices, okay? I'll give you a good example. This really happened to me. A big company in Sri Lanka, the head of exports, and asked me, could you help me to sell this particular product? Okay. So in the US, I hired a guy, asked him to get me orders because he had worked for this particular industry sector before. So this guy brought me an order. First order, 300 containers. Okay. So I come here, I said, okay, here. And this guy happened to be a classmate of mine. So I said, yeah, here, I got your order, and how shall we do? Okay. So the CEO, everybody came, sat down, talked. Guess what? They have never even done a proper pricing for such a scale. Apparently, it's a big order for them, which I didn't know. 300 containers, one product. So they struggle to get all the things done, and then if they have not thought through in that scale. Long story short, we could not do it. 300 containers, I don't think it's a lot for a 1 year project. Anyway, that particular. So you have to think through your capacity, your production, ingredients, whatever, and you need to have all that ready when you go to international market. You cannot just blame embassy and say, hey, give us the order, tell us. You need to have entire process right in place, and also you also should know what capacity you have, and accordingly you should grow your business slowly. You cannot get to the big level, but Haley's and people like that, yes, they should be able to do these big numbers, and it'll be nice now that Ikram over here. I want to urge you, think of opening your offices in these countries, because it'll make a big difference. Go there, go and challenge them. You know, hire a white face over there. They will do all the work for you. You know, it's so much easier then. You don't have to do all the work from here. Not just Ikram, I'm talking about anybody, you know, like even the travel agencies, if you can put having a joint venture with travel companies, IT companies. Like, for example, when I brought one of the big IT companies to Sri Lanka from Netherlands, the chairman asked me, Ambassador, I love your country. And, you know, we went through his whole, you know, praising our country. But end of the day, he asked me how he had gone to study India, Vietnam, and all these countries, but we managed to get that company to Sri Lanka. That's because I called the minister, and he said he will sit at the chair in the BOI until he finished that paperwork. So Friday night, 7 p.m., they signed the document. So that's the kind of push and timely aggressiveness you need to get something done. And I also remember I asking Sanat Ukwata to host a tea at the sunset near the pool. So you have a very romantic atmosphere. I know the Westerners go crazy for sunset at the beach. So nice enough, Sanat Ukwata hosted a tea for this particular company. And then Mr. Hari Jawardhan also hosted dinner and told him how to do business in Sri Lanka. Minister stayed at the BOI office until 7 p.m. until they finished the paperwork. So this is the kind of teamwork we put together to bring companies sometimes. But it should be routine. We shouldn't have to manhandle this kind of things. But anyway, we did it. But that's the energy and the effort we made.
So finally, I booked your time till 7:30, and just as right now we are so challenged on a daily basis. We have a forex challenge ahead of us. I wouldn't call it a crisis, but we have a challenge just like every single country around the world. We have a huge challenge with regard to our health with the Delta plus virus coming in. And there is a 10-day cautious period that has been brought by the Minister of Health. We know that we have a breakdown on policy. Let's accept it very clearly. It is a breakdown of policy which needs to be corrected. Given these kinds of, a typical audit, if you were to do, since you have had so much of experience dealing with so many calamities across, how would you, what advice would you or what is the way forward you would give a youngster, sir?
Let me add something to your question. Let me share one different side to it, but I will also answer your question. But this COVID would have been a great opportunity for us if we had known how to brand our Hela Vedakam. We made a big joke out of a whole Hela Vedakam. It became an insult to our own country, our own heritage, own pride. That's because some of these jokers ruined even the basic opportunity we could have had with Hela Vedakam. Don't you think we had some immune boosters in our own cultural, our whole Hela Veda? It's shame. It's again lack of branding knowledge. We don't even have to talk about COVID, but once you have immune booster in your body, not even a normal flu will attack you. So it's a sad moment for me to see such a big, I don't know whether big pharma companies behind this or what happened, but this would have been a great opportunity for Sri Lanka to at least do something with our immune boosters from our Hela Vedakam, but it got tarnished by having some jokes about this whole penny and everything, But anyway, with regard to how to handle COVID, all my at least the top CEOs around the world, this was a forced vacation on all of these guys. Guess what? All of them used this time so wisely to do great things. Some people came up with the new products, innovative thinking, the books they could not get to read because they are booked from the time they wake up to until 11 o'clock at night. Most of the high-profile people have a 16-hour, 18-hour days, 7 days a week. This was a fantastic opportunity for lots of people around the world, and great thinkers did great things. Because I know some of these people and what they did with this time. So I hope youngsters, even a better opportunity for them. They don't have a lot of peer pressure from friends to get drunk and do other parties. Use this opportunity. There are enough online courses, online opportunities. A lot of things are available free. If you're IT guys, you can take IT classes. If you are a history major, learn about all the historical things, through different websites. I don't know if Sri Lanka students use Khan Academy or not. There are a lot of academic places and free places to do things. I hope I didn't lose you. I hope I didn't.
Can hear you, sir.
So that's what I would tell the youngsters to use the opportunity. It's a great opportunity, and it's a very sad moment for me because when you are in A levels to university stage, that is the time that you really master your social skills also, not the skills that you, you build up friends from grade 1 to 12 also, but grade 10, 11, 12 and the university days, those are the real solid friendships you make. And I know these days it's difficult to socialize, but use your socializing through internet and build great friendships, and sharpen your modern way of networking. I think those are the things that I could think of sharing with the MBA students.
Ikram, over to you. How do you see, you have one generations of advice that you got, and then you have a younger generation. How do you look at this current situation that you're faced with, where you can't step out of home sometimes? You being in a global organization, I'm sure you would have done so much of travel, and so many challenges right ahead. But what is your advice to a youngster looking at the future? I mean, it's quite a very serious issue, huh?
Yes, I can speak for a long time, but I think it's first of all, for me, you got to have the winning mindset and the right attitude. And these are kind of, little obstacles in the path. So you don't, get disheartened, or you don't look at things negatively. Every dark cloud has a silver lining, they say. So the silver lining is quite visible now. Things are getting back. So, you have, Ambassador spoke about a V-shaped recovery. So some have a V shape, some might have a W shape. But when the recovery is happening, will come a massive amount of opportunities. So that is something that all the youngsters should be looking forward to. Organizations went in for freezing recruitments, salary freezers, your allowances got cut, etc., etc. That's because they saw a very uncertain era. But now, you will definitely have a opposite of the coin reaction, because when things are falling back in place, confidence levels go up. People will start hiring. The travelers will be back. Entertainment will take place. Organizations will be more confident to expand. So that will open up a massive opportunity for the young, learned, and the ones with the right attitude, and the ones who really are willing to put the hard yards. There is no shortcut to success. You got to work hard. You got to have your focus. You need to know what you want, and you've got to be passionate about what you really want to do. So I think my advice to the youngsters is to stay sharp, stay focused, up your game. Knowledge is everything. And today you can go into social media without you knowing. You might spend 2-3 hours just chatting or looking at some pictures or doing nothing. But time is money. Time is everything. So use that time to really increase your knowledge, and knowledge will take you places.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Mr. Buddhi Athauda. Yes, sir.
Ron, can I have 3 more minutes from you? Because
please,
I think that,
please, sir. Please.
Because I think today I want to really talk about concept level, because all of your students are bright, and I'm sure they can go to the internet and find all the data, what are the trade numbers and all that. But I just want to point out one more thing for students, because this will, I think it's important. This world is changing in a big way in the next, like European Union. Here you have a government in each country, but then here European Union as a union taking decisions and becoming a one trading block. But then the United Nations role will become extremely critical in the long run also, because here now you have new superpowers coming up. China in one side, India on one side, US on the other side, and then whole European Union as a one unit. So think about having 3, 4, 5 different power blocks now. Russia on the other side. I think Africans also will get together a little bit, and then South America on the other side. You know, all these days, like American president has a lot of power to call the shots all around the world, and then each country's president and head of state had a lot of power. But now a third element is coming up. The civil society has a voice coming up. So this was one of the logics that we created this diplomatic council. So we noticed the place of ambassador, the position of ambassador is also quite credible. It's all, in the world of business, we can call it, it's almost like having an American Express Gold credit card. Basically, you can go anywhere and charge it and it works. Ambassador post, you really, if you think about from the business point of view, you can ask for any company chairman for appointment. They will say, Your Excellency, let me come and see you. That's the kind of a courtesy you get. So think about having access to pretty much any CEO you want in the world. It's unbelievable. So knowing how to use this tool is very important. So what I notice is when ambassador goes to an embassy, it takes about 1 year, 2 years, 3 years to develop a network of business people, because the modern day ambassador's job is all about investments and trade. If nothing else is that important to me. So if every ambassador has to repeat this exercise, it takes about 3 years really to get to know a country and get to know the business people. So we created an organization for CEOs and ambassadors work together in one platform as a networking platform, and also a platform where CEOs can go into a new market through the help of the ambassador. So they have market access and also knowing what are the opportunities in a country. I mean, I think nobody better than ambassador who could tell what's available in your country. So then we also got the seat in the UN. It became a UN recognized organization. So not only our organization, Diplomatic Council, then there are so many global organizations that could voice people's needs. Amnesty International for Human Rights to Diplomatic Council for, on the other hand, like there are so many other organizations. So these organizations, the civil society organizations, they have a very bigger role to play in the long run, because when the world becomes segmented into various things, there will be also new upcoming forces from civil society organization can have the representation all the way to the UN. So therefore, civil society organizations' role that play in a country is also quite important. So I would urge our youngsters to also look into civil society organizations. In fact, in Sri Lanka, you have Lions and Lions. Rotary, yes, you are a Rotarian. I think you won a big award recently. So proud of all your hard work during that big pandemic time. I remember you worked very hard. So like that. So the civil society locally, also globally. So the local should connect with the global, and that also can be a platform for our young MBAs when they do businesses. So don't forget.
Thank you very much for those thoughts. But one final question, sir, since you've been so truthful and honest, and how come our diplomatic community couldn't help us to get the AstraZeneca second dose?
You really don't want to get trouble over here, right? Let me answer it properly. I think there are two ways AstraZeneca you can buy. One, first of all, AstraZeneca you have to buy directly from the manufacturer.
Yeah.
So government should have agency in the government who could directly deal with them. So it's up to them to figure out which AstraZeneca branch office that we should have dealt with, then we deal with them. That's one model. Other one is, then there is the other one is through another government, we could have bought AstraZeneca, because AstraZeneca only is selling to the government. But some clever governments have ordered extra, and they are through their different ways that is sold in the private markets also, because some governments think like CEOs now, not like a government anymore. You know, Dubai is a good example, and I think there will be a couple of other countries also will do it. So what do? The government buy extra. They say it's for their country, and also for foreign donations or foreign aids. You can go through this. Also, there can be places where there can be governments can sell it to a private company, then that company can sell it to a Sri Lanka business group or to the Sri Lankan government. So this is very simple. It's you need to go to the source directly. I think that's what the whole world is expecting nowadays. I don't think the Sri Lanka could have asked few other governments, like the US government. I think now they're giving us like 100,000 pieces. We could have, I'm sure our people are working hard. Whole world is competing for these things, especially at that last few months. But very soon it will be available very easily, because once you vaccinate all the nations, the value of this market price also will go down. So it's a matter of balancing this. You know. I don't. Yeah. So that would be the answer, without going into.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for spending so much of time, almost 1.5 hours, and it's really a pleasure to understand the minds of a career diplomat. Very few students get this opportunity actually, and thank you very much for making that time. And Ikram, I'm really proud of you. I remember, as you said, teaching when you were just 19 years old, but now you're a big man and heading the Sri Lanka, France Business Council. So it's actually so coincidental that we meet again. And thank you so much. And can I hand over to Kaushali? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And indeed, an apt discussion with these erudite personals. And we are so humbly thankful to you for sharing this time with us today on behalf of our students. And I'm sure it will be a motivation for each and every student of us to start from today and go forward without having to just look at these challenges merely as challenges. So while thanking all of you, that brings us to the end of another session in this series. And while thanking the audience, our dear students who have been here, I'm sure you have a message today for you to take forward. Along with that, let me thank everyone, and we will say goodbye for now until we meet back again in another session next week. Take care, stay safe. Good night.